Hello Stampers, I've got a fun little project for you today, and I'm going to be using the plastic wrap technique to get this painterly look to our background. And I'm also going to be using one of the dies from a new set called Frosted Forest. This has all kinds of trees in it, and it coordinates with the Frosted Forest stamp set, but we're going to just be using one of the dies from the die set today. We're going to be using this tree die here, and I cut it out of basic black so that we have that already, and I'm just going to set that aside for now. Okay, so we have that, our first piece done, and we're going to be working on our main panel here, and we're going to put our background in first. And I have a strip of basic white cardstock here, and it's 2 1/4 by 5 1/2. Now you can find all the dimensions for this card down below the video. Just click more under the description. You'll see them there along with all the links to the products that I used today. Now we're going to be using a piece of plastic wrap. This is like regular old cellophane. And I have a pretty good sized piece here. And I'm just going to wad it up. And this is going to give us this great texture in our background. It's kind of like, now what is that? Is that water? Is that grass? You know, it's that kind of like blurred out background. Really fun to put in. And we're going to start with our lightest color, which is Lemon Lime Twist. Now you're going to use this balled up plastic wrap just like you would a sponge. You're going to dab it on your ink pad here, and then dab it around on your paper. Now this, I don't want this all filled in. I want this just to be a light coat here and there all the way across this paper here. And that's our lemon lime twist in our scene. Now we're going to get a little darker, and we're going to go with Old Olive. I'm going to unwad my plastic wrap and wad it back up because I don't want to get a flat side. If it gets flat, then you won't have all that great texture. So I'm just going to wad it back up again. And I'm going to use it this time, and I'm going to add some of that in the upper sky area. Again, we don't want to fill it all in. We're going to leave it to where it has some of the white still showing through. Next, we're going to add some across our panel here. I've left a light area in there. And we're going to just add some here and there on this bottom part here. Just like that. Okay, so now we're going to get a little darker yet. We're going to go to Mossy Meadow. I'm going to unwad my paper, my plastic wrap again, wad it back up, and I'm going to add some of that Mossy Meadow up here, like in the middle of the card. I'm going to add some here at the very bottom, and a little at the top. So there's our Mossy Meadow. Now it's time to put our tree on. Here's our background. Now it's time to put our tree on. And we have this whole section of trees here. I just want to use this largest tree, so I've got my paper snips here. And I'm going to snip these apart. There's just 2 places that holds these trees apart together. And then I'll snip it right there in front of that second tree along the bottom. And you can use these, you can snip them apart again and use them separately, or you can save this and use it for another project. So I'm just going to add this right in here. So our tree is at the top of our project here. I'm just going to glue it on. I'm going to use my multi-purpose glue here. Just going to add some glue along the bottom, some down the main trunk. I'm just rubbing this on. I'm not putting big dollops of it. So I don't want it gushing out. So I just put a little on each thing here. There we go. Then I'm going to add it to my cardstock. And you got that flat side against here where you cut it off. And there is our tree on there. Now we're going to bring in some real darkness to our project here. I'm going to unwind this plastic wrap again. I'm going to ball it up, and this time I'm going to make it like a little narrow piece because I want to add some of this darkness right here where our land comes out. There we go. I like that. And then I'm going to add some to our corners just to give it a little distressed look. Okay, so there's our main panel. Cute, cute. So we're going to set that aside for a moment. And another thing I did was our sentiment here. This says thinking of you, and I did it at a lemon lime twist. And what I used was the Thoughtful Moments hybrid embossing folder and then the Thoughtful Moments dies. What you do first is take I just cut a little square of the lemon lime twist. And I put it here in my embossing folder where it says thinking of you. So I put it under there, ran that through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And then I took the coordinating die, which is awesome. So I took this coordinating die, it's one big sheet here, put it through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine and cut that out. It lines up perfectly with your sentiment. And then you just run it through and cut it out. It has all these wonderful little add-ons too that you can add. Get these lined back up here. So again, that was the Thoughtful Moments dies and a 3D embossing folder. So that we have our sentiment piece all done. Now we're going to grab our main card panel here. This is our card base, and this is Old Olive, and it's 5.5 by 8.5, and it's folded in half to create our quarter card. So on the front of the card, we're going to add our main panel. And I'm going to add it, 3/4 of an inch from the right side there. There we go. Just give it a look and make sure it's straight. And then I have a strip of lemon lime twist. And this is 1/4 inch by 5.5. We're going to add that on our front of our card here. I'm going to add it right along our main panel. All right, so we have that. Now I wanted to add some texture to the front of my card. So we're going to run this through the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine using the So Swirly embossing folder. Beautiful embossing folder. Look how big this embossing folder is. It's huge. So we're going to add this on by taking our card and just putting it through. I have half of it on the back and then just half of it on the inside. And then we're going to run it through the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, and it's going to smush all of this together and give it all that great texture of those swirls. Okay, I'm back. I've ran that through the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, and look how that turns out. Really pretty. Hope you can see all that texture on there. And then it makes it look like all these pieces are like embedded in that card front. So there we have that, and then all we need to do is add our sentiment to the front. And I'm just gluing this on. You can pop this up with dimensionals if you want to. I just thought it looked just fine flat. So I'm just going to add this on. Make sure I have it on there straight. There we go. And that is the front of our card. Now for the inside, I have cut 2 basic white panels. They're 4 by 5 1/4. And because I have this embossed, this front is embossed, I kind of want to cover some of that up. And that's going to help keep the front of our card nice and thick and sturdy too, by adding an additional panel in there. So we'll just add this on. Center it up here on the front of the, there we go. There's one. Then we're going to do the same thing to the back panel. And give it a look to make sure that they're even across the top. And I like how that looks. And you've got plenty of place to write like a letter in there. And thinking of you, you probably want to do that. So there is our finished card, all done. I hope you enjoyed this project and that you give it a try. It's a lot of fun to do. Thanks for joining me. Take care. Toodles.